Little girl gives a signal at the mall. Officer immediately senses danger and acts fast. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The afternoon sun streamed through the skylights of Westfield Mall, casting warm patterns across the polished floors. Robert Wilson adjusted his security uniform and sipped his coffee, nodding at familiar shopkeepers as he made his routine patrol. After 15 years on the job, he knew every corner of this place, the rhythm of the crowds, the ebb and flow of weekend shoppers, and especially the subtle signs when something wasn't quite right. Today was supposed to be ordinary. Robert had planned to complete his shift, meet his daughter for dinner, and catch the game afterward. But fate had other plans, hidden in plain sight. The carousel at the center of the mall spun in its endless circle, filled with laughing children on painted horses. The calliope music created a cheerful backdrop to the shopping day. Robert paused, allowing himself a moment to enjoy the simple happiness of the scene. That's when he noticed her. A little girl with blonde hair tied in a neat ponytail sat on a white carousel horse. She was about 6 years old, wearing a blue dress with tiny flowers. Most would only see a child enjoying a ride, but Robert noticed something else, something that made him set his coffee down and pay closer attention. The girl wasn't watching the other children or laughing at the ride's movement. Instead, her eyes scanned the crowd systematically, as if searching for someone. When she spotted Robert's uniform, she held his gaze for a fraction too long. Then she did something that sent a chill down his spine. She raised her hand in what appeared to be a casual wave, but her fingers formed a distinct pattern. Thumb tucked across her palm, fingers folded down. It wasn't a random gesture. Robert had seen this signal in the safety training videos. It was a silent call for help. Standing beside her carousel horse was a well-dressed man in his 40s. He smiled and took photos, appearing every bit the caring guardian. There was nothing obviously concerning about him. He was well-groomed, his clothes expensive, his manner attentive. "Uncle Marcus, look how high I am," the girl called out, her voice bright, but her eyes never matching her smile. The man, Marcus, nodded enthusiastically. "You look wonderful, Lily. Just a few more minutes, then we need to go." Robert maintained his position, casually leaning against a column while observing. When Marcus turned to check his phone, Lily's expression changed instantly, the smile vanishing, replaced by something that made Robert's heart sink. Fear. As the carousel completed another turn, Robert noticed something else. A red ribbon tied around Lily's wrist. The same color used in missing children campaigns. When Marcus reached up to help her adjust her position, his hand lingered on her arm in a way that seemed controlling rather than caring. Robert felt the familiar tug of instinct, the same feeling that had helped him prevent countless incidents over the years. Something was wrong here. The contrast between Lily's outward behavior and her subtle signals was too pronounced to ignore. As the carousel began to slow, Lily's eyes found Robert's once more. This time, there was no mistaking the silent message they contained. "Help me." Robert reached for his radio, keeping his voice casual as he called his colleague Sophia for backup. The carousel came to a stop, and Marcus lifted Lily from the horse. Robert knew that what happened next would depend entirely on his actions. One wrong move could make the situation worse, or one right move could change everything. The ordinary day had suddenly become anything but. Robert watched as Marcus guided Lily away from the carousel, his hand firmly on her shoulder. To anyone else, they might look like family, but Robert had spent years reading the subtle language of body language and behavior. "Sophia, I need you to check the east entrance cameras," Robert murmured into his radio, looking for footage of a man in his 40s with a young blonde girl, about 6 years old. Blue dress, red ribbon on her wrist. They would have entered within the last hour. "What am I looking for exactly?" Sophia's voice crackled back. "Anything unusual in their interaction? And see if she was with anyone else before him." Robert maintained a careful distance, pretending to check his schedule while keeping the pair in his line of sight. Marcus and Lily stopped at an ice cream stand, where he purchased a small vanilla cone for her. The gesture seemed thoughtful, but Robert noticed how Lily's shoulders remained tense, even as she accepted the treat. An elderly woman with shopping bags passed by Robert, pausing when she saw Lily. "That poor child looks anxious," she commented quietly. "Reminds me of my granddaughter when she's uncomfortable around strangers." Robert glanced at the woman. "You notice that too? When you've raised 3 children and have 5 grandchildren, you develop a sense for these things," she said with a knowing nod before continuing on her way. Her observation reinforced Robert's concerns. He wasn't overreacting or seeing problems where none existed. His radio buzzed. "Robert, I found them on the footage," Sophia said. "They entered about 40 minutes ago. But here's the interesting part. 20 minutes before that, security cameras caught the same girl with an elderly woman. They got separated near the restrooms, and then suddenly this man appears and takes the girl's hand. He showed her something on his phone that made her go with him." Robert's pulse quickened. "Any sign of distress from the girl when she left with him?" She looked confused, maybe hesitant. Not scared exactly, but definitely not comfortable. "Can you see the elderly woman afterward?" "Yes, she's frantically searching, talking to store." "Employees, wait." Sophia paused. "I've got a security alert from 30 minutes ago. A woman named Sarah Thompson reported her daughter missing while in her grandmother's care at the mall. The description matches our girl. Name is Lily Thompson, age 6. Robert felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an overreaction on his part. Across the food court, Marcus was checking his watch impatiently while Lily slowly ate her ice cream. Robert noticed how she deliberately took tiny bites, as if trying to extend their time in the crowded public space. When Lily looked up and spotted Robert watching them, a flicker of recognition crossed her face. With Marcus distracted by his phone, she subtly touched her wrist where the red ribbon was tied, a silent confirmation of her earlier signal. "Sophia, I need you to contact mall management and have them alert store. Employees about Lily Thompson, but discreetly. No announcements that might spook the man, and see if you can locate the grandmother who reported her missing." "On it," Sophia replied. Robert straightened his uniform and made a decision. He couldn't approach them directly yet, not without risking Marcus fleeing with Lily. But he couldn't simply observe anymore either. He needed to get closer, to gather more information without alerting Marcus to his suspicions. As Marcus guided Lily toward the electronics store, Robert followed, his mind racing through protocols and possibilities. One thing was certain. The ordinary mall patrol had become a delicate rescue mission, with a little girl's safety hanging in the balance. The afternoon crowd continued their shopping, unaware of the drama unfolding in their midst. The electronics store buzzed with activity as Robert entered, maintaining a careful distance from Marcus and Lily. Pretending to browse smartphones, he positioned himself where he could observe them without being obvious. Marcus was examining expensive tablets, occasionally showing features to Lily, who nodded politely but remained withdrawn. Robert's radio vibrated. Silently in his pocket, he stepped behind a display to answer. "Eleanor Thompson is at the security office," Sophia reported. "She's Lily's grandmother. Confirms she was watching Lily while the mother is in the hospital. They got separated when Lily went to look at a toy display. She's beside herself, with worry." "Any information on the man?" Robert asked quietly. "Nothing concrete yet. The grandmother doesn't recognize the description." A woman browsing nearby glanced at Robert with interest. She was in her late 30s with intelligent eyes and a professional demeanor. "Everything all right?" she asked, noticing his concerned expression. Robert hesitated, then made a quick assessment. "Actually, I could use a second perspective. I'm Robert Wilson, head of security." "Diana Reeves," she replied, shaking his hand. "I'm a social worker with family services." Robert felt a surge of relief. A social worker might be exactly what he needed right now. "There's a situation developing," he explained quietly. "See the man and little girl by the tablets? Something doesn't feel right about their interaction. The girl made a distress signal earlier, and we've confirmed she was reported missing by Her grandmother less than an hour ago. Diana observed the pair discreetly. The child's body language is defensive. Notice how she keeps physical distance whenever possible? And she's hypervigilant, constantly scanning her surroundings. Exactly what I noticed, Robert said. I need to approach them, but carefully. Diana nodded. I'd be happy to assist. Sometimes having a female presence can help in these situations. As they formulated a plan, Robert found himself sharing something he rarely discussed. When I was 12, I saw a boy from my neighborhood get into a car with a stranger. I noticed he seemed reluctant, but I didn't tell anyone. Thought maybe it was just a relative he didn't like. 3 days later, they found him. Robert paused. He was okay physically, but something in him had changed forever. I've never forgotten the look in his eyes afterward. Diana touched his arm. Gently. That's why you're so attuned to these situations now. I promised myself I'd never ignore my instincts again, especially when it comes to children, Robert said. But I need to be certain before I act. Their conversation was interrupted when Lily suddenly walked toward them, apparently heading to the adjacent children's book section. As she passed, she deliberately dropped a small folded paper near Robert's foot. Oops, Robert said loudly enough for Marcus to hear. You dropped something, sweetie. Lily turned, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that belied her age. Thank you, she whispered, taking the paper back but pressing a different tiny folded note into his hand as she did. Lily, come back here, please, Marcus called, his tone pleasant but with an undercurrent of tension. Coming, Uncle Marcus, she replied, her voice cheerful but her eyes pleading with Robert before she turned away. When she rejoined Marcus, Robert carefully unfolded the small paper in his palm. Written in a child's uneven handwriting were 5 words. Not uncle. Mom in hospital. Diana had witnessed the exchange. That's all the confirmation I need, she said quietly. Robert nodded, a mixture of concern and determination settling over him. Me too. Let's coordinate with Sophia and make sure all exits are monitored. I'm going to approach them, but I need you nearby. As they moved into position, Robert felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The memory of that boy from his childhood flashed in his mind again, strengthening his resolve. This time he wouldn't stand by and let a child's silent plea go unanswered. The moment to act had arrived. Robert studied Lily's note once more before carefully tucking it into his pocket. The childish handwriting carried an urgent message that confirmed his suspicions. With Diana positioned nearby, he approached Marcus and Lily with a practiced, casual demeanor. Good afternoon, Robert said, smiling warmly. I'm Robert Wilson, head of mall security. Just checking in with our visitors today. We're having a special event for children later at the Central Plaza. Face painting and a magic show. Marcus stiffened slightly but maintained a pleasant expression. That sounds nice, but we won't be staying much longer. Right, Lily? Lily looked up at Robert, her blue eyes filled with unspoken words. I love magic shows, she said softly. Your daughter has excellent taste, Robert commented, watching carefully for Marcus's reaction. She's my niece, actually, Marcus corrected quickly. I'm looking after her while her mother is unavailable. Robert nodded sympathetically. That's very kind of you. Family is so important in difficult times. Diana approached, her timing perfect. Excuse me, are you talking about the children's event? I'm helping coordinate it. We have registration forms if you'd like to sign up. She smiled at Lily. We're doing princess tiaras at the face painting station. Lily's eyes lit up momentarily, but Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. Unfortunately, we have other commitments. Perhaps another time. Of course, Diana replied cheerfully. By the way, I don't believe I've seen you at the mall before. Are you local? Just passing through, Marcus answered, his responses becoming more clipped. Lily, we should continue shopping. We still need to pick up those things for your mother. Robert noticed how Lily's expression flickered at the mention of her mother, a mixture of hope and confusion. Well, don't let us keep you, Robert said. If you need Anything? Our security office is near the north entrance. We also have a lost and found if you misplace anything. He emphasized the last sentence while making eye contact with Lily. As they walked away, Robert saw Marcus check his watch nervously and whisper something to Lily that made her shoulders slump. He's getting anxious, Diana observed quietly. Did you notice how he tensed when you mentioned the security office? And how carefully he avoided details about the mother? Robert added. Let's get back to the office and see what we can learn from the grandmother. In the SEU security office, Eleanor Thompson sat with tissues clutched in her hand, her eyes red from crying. When Robert and Diana entered, she looked up hopefully. Have you found her? Have you found my Lily? Mrs. Thompson, I'm Robert Wilson, and this is Diana Reeves from Family Services. We've located Lily, and she appears physically unharmed, Robert explained gently. She's with a man who's calling himself her uncle. Do you know anyone who might claim that relationship? Eleanor shook her head firmly. Sarah has no brothers, and her ex-husband had no siblings. There's no uncle. Can you tell us exactly what happened today? Diana asked. Sarah was admitted to Memorial Hospital 3 days ago with pneumonia. It became quite serious, and she's been under intensive care. I've been looking after Lily, Eleanor explained. Today, we were shopping for some books to read to Sarah when she's, feeling better. Lily was just a few feet away looking at a display, and then her voice broke. She was gone. I only looked away for a moment. Robert unfolded the small paper Lily had given him. Mrs. Thompson, is this Lily's handwriting? Eleanor nodded immediately. Yes, that's definitely hers. She's always making little notes. Sophia entered with a tablet. I've pulled up more security footage. The man used his credit card at the carousel. Name is Marcus Delaney. And there's something else. I found footage of him watching Lily and Mrs. Thompson for nearly 20 minutes before Lily became separated. He was targeting them, Robert concluded grimly. But why? Eleanor asked. We're not wealthy. We don't know him. Diana's phone chimed with a message. I just received information from my office. There's a Marcus Delaney who's been flagged in our system for approaching families with hospitalized relatives. He's never been charged, but there have been complaints about him offering to help with childcare and then requesting financial compensation. So he's a con artist, not a... Robert paused, choosing his words carefully in front of Eleanor. Not someone who would harm Lily. Physically. Typically, no, Diana confirmed. But he's still taking a child under false pretenses. Robert's radio crackled. Robert, they're heading toward the east exit, Sophia reported urgently. He seems to be in a hurry. We need to intercept them, Robert said, already moving toward the Dewar. Diana, stay with Mrs. Thompson. Sophia, alert security at all exits, but tell them to stand by. No direct intervention until I give the word. As Robert hurried through the mall, weaving through crowds of shoppers, he felt the weight of Lily's note in his pocket. The trust she had placed in him, a stranger who had noticed her signal, was a responsibility he couldn't bear to betray. Time was running out. Robert rushed toward the east exit, his heart pounding with urgency. The afternoon crowd seemed to move in slow motion around him as he wove between shoppers, keeping his pace just below. A run to avoid causing alarm. Sophia, do you still have visual on them? He asked into his radio. They're approaching the doors now, she replied. Marcus is practically pulling Lily along. Something spooked him. Robert rounded the corner into the main corridor leading to the exit, scanning the sea of faces. There, about 50 yards ahead, he spotted them. Marcus was walking briskly, his hand firmly gripping Lily's arm as she struggled to keep up with his longer strides. Even from a distance, Robert could see the tension in the man's movements. All security personnel, be advised, Robert spoke quietly into his radio. Potential child safety situation near east exit. Do not approach but maintain visual contact. Subject is Marcus Delaney with 6-year-old Lily Thompson. He increased his pace, trying to close the distance without alerting Marcus. But the mall was crowded with weekend shoppers creating a frustrating obstacle course of strollers, shopping bags, and meandering teenagers. Just as Robert was about to call for backup to intercept them at the doors, Marcus glanced back. Their eyes met briefly across the distance. Something in Robert's expression must have betrayed his intentions, because Marcus immediately changed direction, pulling Lily sharply toward a service corridor. "They've spotted me," Robert reported. "Heading toward the service area by the food court. Need immediate backup." He broke into a run now, no longer concerned about maintaining cover. As he reached the service corridor, he found it empty, with 3 possible directions they could have taken: toward the loading docks, the parking garage, or back into another section of the mall. "Sophia, check the cameras. Where did they go?" After a moment of silence, Sophia responded, They entered parking garage. Level 2, Section D." Robert sprinted toward the nearest entrance to the garage, pushing through the heavy door into the dimly lit concrete structure. The sound of a car engine starting echoed through the space. He ran toward the sound, reaching Section D just in time to see a silver sedan pulling out of a parking space. Through the rear window, he caught a glimpse of Lily's face turned toward him, her small hand quickly forming the now familiar signal before Marcus accelerated away. "Vehicle leaving parking level 2, Robert reported breathlessly. "Silver Toyota Camry license. Plate beginning with RDM. He raced to the exit ramp, but by the time he reached it, the car had disappeared into the stream of traffic on the main road. "I've lost visual," he admitted, frustration evident in his voice. "Sophia, can you track them on external cameras?" "Trying," she replied. "Got them turning right on Oakwood Avenue, now left on Riverside. I'm losing them in traffic." Robert slammed his hand against the concrete wall in frustration. Just when they had confirmation of Lily's situation, just when they were closing in, they'd lost her. He returned to the security office, where Diana was comforting a distraught Eleanor. "We lost them," he announced grimly, "but we've got his name, vehicle information, and confirmation that he's taken Lily under false pretenses. This is now a police matter." "I've already contacted Officer James Parker," Diana said. "He's a friend from the department who specializes in child safety cases. He's on his way." Robert knelt beside Eleanor. "Mrs. Thompson, I promise you we're going to find Lily. She's a remarkably brave and smart little girl. She managed to communicate with us despite the circumstances." Eleanor wiped her tears. "Sarah taught her about safety, what to do if she ever felt scared or lost. Lily's always been so attentive to those lessons." "That training may have saved her," Robert said. "And there's something else you should know. Lily mentioned her mother is in the hospital. That means Marcus has been honest with her about that much at least. He doesn't seem to be trying to frighten her unnecessarily." Sophia entered with a tablet. "I've got something. Our external cameras caught them heading toward the Pine Ridge area. And I found this on an earlier security feed." She played a video showing Marcus approaching Lily while Eleanor was distracted by a store clerk. He showed Lily something on his phone, a photo or message, that made her eyes widen in recognition. That's how he convinced her to go with him, Robert realized. He showed her something about her mother. Officer Parker arrived shortly after, a tall man with a calm demeanor that immediately brought a sense of order to the chaotic situation. "James, thank you for coming so quickly," Diana greeted him. "When it involves a child, we don't wait," he replied, then turned to Robert. "Sophia filled me in. You did good work recognizing the situation." "Not good enough," Robert said grimly. "We lost them. But we know who we're looking for now," Parker countered. "And that's the first step to finding her." As they began coordinating their efforts, Robert couldn't shake the image of Lily's face in the car window, not just afraid, but determined. She was counting on them to understand her messages, to follow the breadcrumbs she was bravely leaving behind, and he had no intention of letting her down. The security office had transformed into an impromptu command center. Officer Parker worked his phone, coordinating with patrol units searching for Marcus's silver Toyota. Eleanor sat nearby, clutching a framed photo of Lily from her purse. a school picture showing a bright-eyed girl with a missing front tooth and an infectious smile. "I've put out a bolo for the vehicle," Parker announced, referring to the Be On Lookout. "Alert. Every patrol car in the county will be watching for it." Robert paced the small room, replaying the day's events in his mind. "There's something we're missing. Marcus didn't just randomly target Lily. He knew her mother was in the hospital. He had specific information." Diana nodded, thoughtfully. "These situations usually involve some prior connection, however tenuous. Mrs. Thompson, could Sarah have mentioned Marcus Delaney at any point? Perhaps a colleague or an acquaintance?" Eleanor frowned, concentrating. "The name doesn't sound familiar, but Sarah knows so many people. Through her work at the community center, she coordinates volunteer programs there." "The community center," Robert repeated, something clicking in his mind. "Sophia, can you pull up Marcus Delaney's background information again?" Sophia typed rapidly on her keyboard. "Marcus Delaney, age 42. Previous addresses in 3 states over the past 5 years. Employment history includes..." Wait, here's something. 6 months ago, he volunteered at the Riverside Community Center for their holiday program. "That's where Sarah works," Eleanor exclaimed. "That's our connection, Officer Parker." Denis, he likely met Sarah there, learned about her life, her family. But why target them specifically? Robert wondered aloud. What's his motivation? Diana consulted her phone. According to my colleague at Family Services, Delaney's pattern involves insinuating himself into vulnerable families, particularly those with a hospitalized member. He offers help, builds trust, then finds ways to access financial accounts or personal information. Has he been violent in previous cases? Robert asked the question that had been weighing on him. No records of violence, Diana confirmed, bringing a collective sigh of relief to the room. He's manipulative, not physically dangerous. His typical approach is to present himself as a concerned friend or distant relative, offering help during a crisis. That's something, at least, Eleanor said shakily. Sophia's computer chimed with an alert. I found something on social media. A local news station did a story 3 days ago about community support for families with medical emergencies. Sarah was featured, with a brief mention of her being hospitalized with severe pneumonia and concern for her young daughter. Robert leaned over to view the screen. The news clip showed a reporter standing outside Memorial Hospital, discussing how community members were rallying to support local families facing medical crises. A photo of Sarah and Lily appeared briefly, with a caption mentioning Sarah's condition. That's how he knew. Robert realized. He saw an opportunity. A single mother hospitalized, a young child being cared for by a grandmother. He probably monitored them, waiting for the right moment. And I gave him that moment, Eleanor said, her voice breaking with guilt. I only looked away for a second. Diana placed a comforting hand on Eleanor's shoulder. This isn't your fault, Mrs. Thompson. Predators like Delaney are experts at exploiting even the smallest opening. Officer Parker's phone rang. He answered, listened intently, then addressed the group. A patrol unit spotted the Toyota turning into the Pine Ridge Motel about 20 minutes ago. They're maintaining surveillance but haven't approached yet. The Pine Ridge, Robert repeated. That's a weekly rate motel on the edge of town. A place where people stay when they're passing through or lying low, Parker added. Suggest he wasn't planning to leave the area immediately. What's our next move? Robert asked, already reaching for his jacket. We approach carefully, Parker replied. Based on what we know about Delaney, he's not likely to harm Lily physically, but if he feels cornered, he might flee again. We need to contain the situation without escalating it. I should be there, Diana insisted. Lily will need a familiar face she associates with help, and a trauma-informed approach when we make contact. I'm coming too, Robert said firmly. Parker nodded. We'll take my unmarked car. Mrs. Thompson, I need you to stay. Here with Sophia. We'll keep you updated every step of the way. As they prepared to leave, Robert noticed Eleanor clutching Lily's photo, her hands trembling. He knelt beside her. We're going to bring her back, he promised softly. Lily is smart and brave. She's helping us find her. That courage runs in your family. Eleanor managed a tearful smile. Sarah always says Lily has an old soul, that she notices everything. Please tell her. Her voice caught. Tell her Grandma is waiting for her. Robert nodded, feeling the weight of this promise as he followed Parker and Diana out the door. The afternoon sun was beginning to lower in the sky as they drove toward the Pine Ridge Motel. Robert stared out the window, thinking of Lily's clever signals and notes, her determination to be found. They had connected the dots this far. Now they just needed to bring her home. Officer Parker's unmarked police car pulled into a convenience store parking lot across from the Pine Ridge Motel. The establishment had seen better days, its once bright blue paint now faded, the neon vacancy sign flickering inconsistently in the late afternoon light. Room 118, Parker said, checking his phone. Ground floor, west side. 2 officers are maintaining surveillance from an unmarked van in the lot. Robert studied the layout of the motel, a single-story L-shaped building with rooms facing the parking area. He could see the silver Toyota parked outside room 118, confirmation that Marcus and Lily were inside. What's our approach? Diana asked, her professional calm belied by the tension in her voice. We need more information before we make contact, Parker replied. If we move too quickly and Marcus feels cornered, the situation could escalate. Robert nodded in agreement, though his instinct, was to rush in immediately. What about Lily's mother? Does she know what's happening? Diana shook her head. The hospital says Sarah's condition has stabilized, but she's still under intensive care. They're concerned about causing her distress in her current state. Parker's radio crackled with an update from the surveillance team. Subject and child ordered food delivery about 15 minutes ago. Delivery arrived 5 minutes ago. Curtains remain closed, but voices can be heard inside. Sounds like television. At least we know they're still there, Robert said. Inside the car, a small television mounted to the dashboard suddenly caught Robert's attention. The local news was playing, and a familiar face appeared on screen, a woman in her early 30s with Lily's same blonde hair and gentle eyes, though her face was thin and pale against hospital pillows. That's Sarah Thompson, he said, turning up the volume. The news anchor's voice filled the car. Continuing our coverage of local community member Sarah Thompson, whose condition has improved after a critical bout with pneumonia. Thompson, a single mother and beloved community center coordinator, made this emotional plea from her hospital bed earlier today. The footage cut to Sarah, her voice weak but determined. I just want to thank everyone for their support and prayers, and to my daughter Lily. Mommy loves you so much and can't wait to see you. I'm getting better every day, sweetheart. Be brave for me. Robert, Diana, and Parker exchanged significant looks. This changes everything, Diana said. If Marcus has been telling Lily that her mother doesn't want to see her or is too sick for visitors, this broadcast directly contradicts his manipulation, Robert finished. If Lily sees this, Parker was already on his phone. I need to know if the motel rooms have cable TV, specifically local Channel 6. After a brief conversation, he turned back to them. They do. All rooms have basic cable included. So there's a chance Lily has seen her mother's message, Diana said, hope evident in her voice. Robert's mind raced with the implications. Or Marcus might have seen it and realized his story about Sarah not wanting to see Lily won't hold up anymore. He might be planning to move again. A new call came into Parker's phone. His expression grew serious as he listened. That was my colleague at the station, he said after hanging up. They've been digging into Marcus Delaney. He's been more active than we thought. 3 similar cases in different counties over the past year. In each one, he positioned himself as a helpful friend to families with a hospitalized member. What was his endgame? Robert asked. Financial exploitation, Parker replied grimly. In the most recent case, he used his position of trust to access bank accounts and credit cards. He drained nearly $15,000 before disappearing. Diana looked troubled. That suggests he's after Sarah's finances, not just short-term gains. And he needs Lily as leverage, Robert concluded. As long as he has her, he has a way to pressure Sarah or access her accounts. Parker nodded. We've confirmed he visited the First National Bank yesterday, asking about accessing Sarah Thompson's accounts. He had some paperwork with him, likely forged guardianship documents. Robert stared at the motel room door, imagining Lily inside, perhaps having just seen her mother on television, realizing that what Marcus told her wasn't true. We need to make contact now, he said firmly. Every minute gives him more time to potentially see that broadcast and realize his story is falling apart. Diana agreed. If Lily has seen her mother on TV, she'll be confused and possibly confrontational with Marcus. That could create an unpredictable situation. Parker considered their options, then nodded decisively. We'll approach, but carefully. Diana and I will go to the door as representatives checking on guest satisfaction, a standard motel procedure. Robert, you stay back as our eyes, monitoring for any attempt to flee through the window or back door. As they prepared to move, Robert felt a surge of both hope and anxiety. They were so close to reaching Lily, but the situation had become more complex. If Marcus felt his plan unraveling, how would he react? The television in the car continued playing, Sarah Thompson's message to her daughter repeating, "Be brave for me." Robert whispered under his breath, "We're coming, Lily. Just hold on a little longer." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Pine Ridge Motel as Robert took his position near a vending machine, approximately 30 feet from room 118. From here, he had a clear view of both the front door and the small window on the far side of the room. Officer Parker and Diana prepared their approach, reviewing their cover story one final time. "Remember," Parker said quietly, "we're simply conducting a guest satisfaction survey. Keep it casual, non-threatening." Diana nodded, adjusting her posture to appear more relaxed. "If we get inside, I'll focus on establishing rapport with Lily while you engage Marcus." Robert watched as they walked casually toward room 118, his heart pounding with anticipation. Through his earpiece, he could hear their conversation as Parker knocked on the door. No answer. Parker knocked again, slightly louder. "Motel management, sir. Just checking that everything's satisfactory with your room." Robert tensed as he heard movement inside, then the sound of the television volume being lowered. After what felt like an eternity, the door opened a few inches, the security chain still in place. Marcus's face appeared in the narrow opening. "Everything's fine," he said curtly. "We don't need anything." "We apologize for the interruption," Diana said with a warm smile. "The motel is conducting a brief satisfaction survey for all guests. It would only take a minute of your time." Through the crack in the door, Robert could see Marcus hesitate, clearly reluctant to engage but also aware that refusing might seem suspicious. "This really isn't a good time," Marcus replied. "My niece isn't feeling well." "I'm sorry to hear that," Diana said, her voice filled with genuine concern. "Is there anything we can help with? I have a background in pediatric care." As they spoke, Robert noticed movement at the window. The curtain shifted slightly, and for a brief moment, he saw Lily peering out. When she spotted him, her eyes widened with recognition. Before the curtain fell back into place, Robert saw her hold up a piece of paper against the window, a drawing of what looked like a house with 3 stick figures, labeled me, Mom, and Grandma, with a heart around them. His breath caught in his throat. The message was clear. Lily knew where she belonged, and it wasn't with Marcus. Meanwhile, at the door, Marcus was growing increasingly uncomfortable with Diana's persistent kindness. "Like I said, we're fine," he insisted. "We'll be checking out soon anyway." "Oh? I thought you had reserved the room for 3 nights," Parker commented casually, a subtle probe that visibly rattled Marcus. "Plans change," Marcus replied, his friendly facade beginning to crack. "Now, if you'll excuse us." Just then, a small voice called from inside the room. "Uncle Marcus, can I watch cartoons again?" It was Lily. and Robert immediately recognized the strategic nature of her interruption. She was creating an opportunity. Marcus turned his head to respond, momentarily distracted. "In a minute, Lily. I'm talking to someone." Diana seized the moment. "Hello there. You must be Lily. I'm Diana. We're just checking if you and your uncle are enjoying your stay." Before Marcus, could prevent it, Lily appeared beside him, peering through the narrow opening. "Hi," she said, her voice deliberately cheerful while her eyes conveyed something entirely different. "I saw my mom on TV. She's in the hospital but getting better." Marcus stiffened visibly. "Lily, go back and sit down. Sit. Now." But Lily stood her ground, a remarkable show of courage for a 6-year-old. "She said she loves me and wants to see me, but Uncle Marcus said she was too sick for visitors and didn't want to see anyone." The implications of her statement hung in the air. Marcus's deception was exposed, and he knew it. Parker maintained his calm demeanor, but his posture shifted subtly, preparing for any sudden movements from Marcus. "That's wonderful news about your mom, Lily. Perhaps we could help arrange a visit to the hospital." Marcus's expression hardened. "That won't be necessary. We have our own arrangements." He began to close the door. "Thanks for your concern, but we're fine." "Wait," Lily called out, but Marcus pulled her away from the door and shut it firmly. Through his earpiece, Robert heard Parker say quietly, "We need to regroup. He's spooked and might try to leave." As if confirming Parker's assessment, Robert noticed the curtain in the room being drawn completely shut. Moments later, he heard what sounded like luggage being moved. "I think they're packing up," Robert reported into his communication device. "We may have lost the element of surprise, but we gained something more important: confirmation that Lily wants to return to her family and that Marcus has been lying to her." Parker and Diana returned to where Robert was standing, their expressions a mixture of concern and determination. "He's definitely planning to move," Parker said. "But now we have enough to act. I'm calling for backup and a warrant based on the new information." Diana looked toward the room, concern etched on her face. "Lily was so brave, creating that opening for us. She's remarkably resilient." Robert nodded, remembering the drawing he had seen. "She knows exactly where she belongs. Now it's up to us to help her get there." The sun continued its descent toward the horizon as they prepared for the next phase of their careful approach. Time was running short, but for the first time, Robert felt certain they were on the right path. Lily was counting on them, and they would not let her down. The evening light had begun to fade when Officer Parker received an urgent call. His expression shifted from determination to concern as he listened. "What is it?" Robert asked as Parker ended the call. "Marcus and Lily just left through the back exit," Parker explained. "Quickly. They're in a taxi, not his car. Officers are following discreetly, but we need to move." They rushed to Parker's vehicle, adrenaline pumping as they pulled out of the convenience store parking lot. Diana monitored updates from the surveillance team through Parker's radio. "The taxi is heading toward downtown," she relayed. "They're not heading out of town, which is interesting." "He's likely realized we're onto him," Parker said, navigating through traffic. "Leaving his car behind suggests he knows it might be recognized." Robert's mind raced through possibilities. If he's not fleeing town, he must have another objective. Something important enough to risk moving Lily in public. 10 minutes later, they received an update that changed everything. The taxi had stopped at Riverside Diner, a popular family restaurant in the center of town. The surveillance team reported that Marcus and Lily had gone inside and taken a booth near the window. "A busy public restaurant?" Diana questioned. "That's not what I expected." "It's actually smart," Parker replied grimly. "He's going where there are witnesses. Makes it harder for us to approach without creating a scene." They parked across the street from the diner, observing through the large windows. The restaurant was bustling with early dinner patrons, families with children, couples, and groups of friends. Marcus and Lily sat in a booth, menus open before them. This complicates things, Parker admitted. We can't just walk in and take her without proper documentation, not in a crowded place without risking public confusion or panic. What surprised Robert most was Lily's demeanor. From their vantage point, she appeared to be smiling, even laughing, as a waitress brought her what looked like an ice cream. Sunday. There was none of the tension or fear he had observed earlier. Something's off, he murmured. Look at how comfortable she seems now. Diana studied the scene thoughtfully. Children are remarkably adaptable. She might be playing along, especially now that she's seen her mother on television and knows the truth. Or, Parker suggested, he's promised to take her to see her mother, buying himself more cooperation. As they debated their approach, a woman exited the diner and headed toward a nearby shop. Robert recognized her as their waitress and made a quick decision. I'm going to talk to her, he said, already moving. She might have overheard something useful. He intercepted the waitress before she reached the shop. Excuse me, miss. I'm Robert Wilson, mall security. I'm working with the police on a sensitive matter involving a child welfare concern. The waitress, her name tag read Nancy, looked surprised but not alarmed. Is this about that sweet little girl with her uncle, the one who ordered the chocolate fudge sundae? Yes, Robert confirmed carefully. Have you noticed anything unusual about them? Nancy considered the question. Well, he's, been real attentive. Almost too much, you know. Ordering everything she wants, telling everyone how he's stepping up during a family emergency. She lowered her voice. Between us, the little girl seemed fine at first, but when he went to the restroom, her whole demeanor changed. Started looking. Around real nervous-like, checking the exits. Did they say anything specific that stood out to you? Actually, yes. The man mentioned they were going to visit her mom at the hospital after dinner. The girl got all excited and asked, Really? Tonight? Like it was the first she'd heard of it. Nancy frowned. And then she asked why they couldn't go right away, and he got this tight look on his face, said something about visiting hours and paperwork to sort out first. Robert thanked Nancy and returned to Parker and Diana with this new information. He's stalling, Diana concluded, after hearing Nancy's observations. Promising a hospital visit he has no intention of delivering. But why bring her to such a public place? Robert wondered. Parker pointed across the street. Look there, the bank, First National. It's still open for another hour. Realization dawned on Robert. The same bank where he was asking about Sarah's accounts yesterday. He needs to finish what he started, Parker said. With the guardianship papers he's forged, he likely needs Lily present to complete whatever financial transaction he's planning. Diana watched the diner with growing concern. So the ice cream, the public appearance, it's all part of maintaining the facade while he prepares for his endgame, Robert finished. As they watched, Marcus checked his watch, then signaled for the check. The final act of his plan was about to unfold. We need to move carefully, Parker cautioned. If we confront him in the diner, he could create a scene, claim we're trying to take his niece, generate public sympathy. Then we wait until they head to the bank, Robert suggested. More controlled environment, security cameras, fewer bystanders. Diana nodded in agreement. And bank. Employees are trained to verify identification and documentation. That could work in our favor. Inside the diner, Lily finished her ice cream, her eyes occasionally drifting toward the window. For a brief moment, her gaze met Robert's across the street. Though no signal was exchanged this time, the recognition in her eyes was unmistakable. She knew they were there, watching, waiting, and somehow that seemed to give her strength. Twilight settled over downtown as Marcus and Lily exited the diner. Robert watched from Parker's car as Marcus guided Lily across the street toward First National Bank, his hand firmly on her shoulder. The bank's windows glowed with warm light, its closing time just 30 minutes away. He's making his move, Parker said, reaching for his radio to update the surveillance team. All units stand by. Subjects entering the bank now. Diana checked her phone. I just received the emergency custody order from Judge Bennett. It's official. We have legal authority to return Lily to her family's care. Perfect timing, Parker said, reviewing the document on Diana's screen. This changes everything. Now we can act with full legal backing. They watched as Marcus and Lily entered the bank, disappearing from view behind the tinted glass doors. Let's go, Parker directed. Robert, you and Diana enter first. Position yourselves near Lily. I'll follow with the documentation and backup officers. Inside the bank, the evening rush was winding down. Only a few customers remained, mostly finishing transactions at the teller windows. Marcus stood at the center of the lobby, scanning for an available banker, his expression tense but determined. Lily stood beside him, her earlier animation now replaced by a solemn quietness. Robert and Diana entered casually, pretending to be regular customers while positioning themselves strategically near a display of brochures. From this vantage point, they could observe without being obvious. A young banker approached Marcus with a professional smile. Good evening, sir. How can I help you today? I need to discuss accessing some accounts, Marcus replied, his voice carefully modulated to sound routine. I'm the temporary guardian for my niece while her mother is hospitalized. He patted Lily's shoulder. I have the paperwork right here. The banker nodded. Of course. Please follow me to my desk and we can discuss your needs. As they moved toward the desk, Robert caught Lily's eye. He gave her a subtle nod, which she acknowledged with a barely perceptible widening of her eyes. Diana leaned close to Robert. Parker's outside with 2 officers. They'll enter once Marcus is seated and engaged with the banker. At the desk, Marcus produced a folder of documents, speaking in low tones with the banker. Lily sat in a chair beside him, her feet dangling above the floor, hands folded in her lap. She appeared calm, but Robert could see her eyes continuously darting toward the entrance. The banker reviewed the papers, her expression professional but increasingly puzzled. Sir, this guardianship document doesn't appear to have the proper court certification, and for transactions of this nature, we would need to verify with the account holder directly. Marcus's smile tightened. As I explained, the account holder is currently hospitalized and unable to communicate. That's why these temporary guardianship papers were processed, for her daughter's care and medical expenses. The banker looked uncomfortable. I understand, but our policy requires additional verification for third-party access to accounts, especially in sensitive situations like this. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping lower but his intensity increasing. Look, this little girl needs medication and special care. Her mother would want. Is my mom really too sick to talk? Lily's small voice suddenly interrupted, clear enough for nearby customers to hear. Because I saw her on TV today and she was talking just fine. The banker blinked in surprise, looking between Marcus and Lily. Marcus's face flushed with a mixture of anger and panic. Lily, remember what we discussed, he said, through a tight smile. Your mom is very sick. The TV interview was recorded before she got worse. Lily shook her head, a remarkable display of courage for someone so young. No, it wasn't. She was wearing the blue hospital gown, and she said she loves me and wants to see me. Her voice grew stronger. You said she didn't want visitors, but that's not true. The banker's professional demeanor gave way to genuine concern. Sir, perhaps we should. We're leaving, Marcus announced abruptly, grabbing Lily's arm. We'll sort this out another time. As he stood, Officer Parker entered the bank, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Their timing was perfect. Calm but authoritative, they approached just as Marcus was attempting to hurry Lily toward the exit. Mr. Delaney, Parker called, his voice carrying across the lobby. A moment of your time, please. Marcus froze, his expression cycling through shock, calculation, and finally the realization that he was cornered. Still, he maintained his facade. Officer, there seems to be some misunderstanding, he began. Parker approached steadily. No misunderstanding, sir. I have an emergency custody order signed by Judge Bennett. Lily Thompson is to be immediately returned to her family's care. Marcus's grip on Lily's arm tightened reflexively, causing her to wince, It was a small gesture, but it was the breaking point. The moment when his carefully constructed facade finally cracked completely. "You have no right," he hissed, his friendly uncle persona evaporating. "I have guardianship papers." "Falsified papers," Parker corrected firmly. "We've confirmed with the court that no legitimate guardianship was ever granted to you." Robert and Diana moved closer, creating a protective semicircle around Lily. The remaining bank. Customers had fallen silent, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Lily looked up at Marcus, then to Robert, her eyes clear and determined despite the tension surrounding her. "I want to go home," she said simply. "I want my mom and grandma." It was the most powerful statement she could have made, a child's honest wish cutting through all the adult complications. And in that moment, Robert knew they had reached the turning point. The bank had fallen completely silent. Every eye was fixed on the tense standoff between Marcus and the officers. Lily stood at the center of it all, her small frame somehow appearing stronger by the moment. Marcus's mind seemed to race behind his eyes, calculating options that were rapidly disappearing. "This is ridiculous," he protested, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. "I'm helping this child while her mother is incapacitated. Ask Lily, haven't I been taking good care of you?" All eyes turned to the little girl. Lily looked at Marcus, then at Robert and Diana, who had positioned themselves protectively nearby. Her answer came with remarkable clarity for a 6-year-old. "You were nice to me," she acknowledged. "But you lied about my mom not wanting to see me. That made me really sad." The simple truth in her words seemed to deflate Marcus further. The bank manager had approached now, concerned about the situation unfolding in her branch. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in a private office," she suggested, gesturing toward a glass-walled conference room. Officer Parker nodded appreciatively. "Thank you. That would be helpful." As they moved toward the conference room, Marcus made one last desperate attempt. "Lily, remember all the fun we had? The ice cream, the carousel ride? I was going to take you to the zoo tomorrow." Lily looked at him with an expression that seemed far beyond her years, a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I just want to see my mom and grandma." Inside the conference room, Marcus finally seemed to accept that his plan had collapsed. He sank into a chair, the fight draining from him. "I wasn't going to harm her," he insisted, though his voice had taken on a defensive edge. "I was just trying to access her mother's accounts," Parker finished firmly. "We know about your previous activities in Westridge and Pineville counties." Marcus flinched at the mention of those places. Diana knelt beside Lily, creating a buffer between her and Marcus. "Lily, you've been incredibly brave. Would you like to sit with me while the officers talk to Mr. Delaney?" Lily nodded, visibly relieved to move away from Marcus. As she settled next to Diana, Robert noticed she was clutching something in her small hand, a folded piece of paper. "What's that you have there?" he asked gently. Lily carefully unfolded it, revealing a child's drawing of 3 stick figures in front of a house. "It's me and Mom and Grandma. I made it for Mom to help her feel better." Robert smiled. "That's a beautiful drawing. I'm sure your mom will love it." While Parker continued questioning Marcus, Robert stepped outside the conference room to call Eleanor with an update. The grandmother's tearful relief was palpable even through the phone. "She's safe," Robert assured her. "We're going to bring her to the hospital shortly so she can see her mother first, then straight to you." When he returned, Parker was explaining the situation to Marcus in clear terms. "You're facing charges of custodial interference, identity fraud, and attempted financial fraud. I strongly suggest you cooperate fully." Marcus stared at the table, his scheme thoroughly unraveled. 2 officers entered to take him into custody, the handcuffs a stark contrast to the carefully maintained image he had projected earlier. As Marcus was led away, he glanced back at Lily one last time. "I'm sorry," he said, though whether from genuine remorse or simply regret at being caught remained unclear. With Marcus gone, the atmosphere in the room transformed. Lily's shoulders relaxed visibly, and she looked up at Diana with clear eyes. "Can I see my mom now? For real?" Diana smiled warmly. "Yes, sweetie, we're going to take you to the hospital right now. And my grandma, too? She's going to meet us there," Robert confirmed. Lily's face brightened. "I knew you'd help me when I made the special signal. My mom taught me about it in our safety class. She said if I ever felt scared or something wasn't right, I should find a helper person and make the sign." Robert felt a wave of emotion. "You did exactly the right thing, Lily. That was very smart thinking." As they prepared to leave, the bank manager approached with a small stuffed bear from the bank's promotional display. "Would you like this, sweetheart? You've been so brave today." Lily accepted the bear with a grateful smile, hugging it to her chest. The simple gesture of kindness seemed to release something in her, and for the first time since Robert had noticed her on the carousel, she looked truly like a child again, not a little girl forced to be strategic and brave beyond her years. Outside, the evening had fully descended, streetlights illuminating their path to Parker's car. Lily walked between Diana and Robert, one hand holding Diana's, the other clutching her drawing and the stuffed bear. "You know," Robert said gently, "I saw you looking out the motel window earlier. That was clever of you to show me your drawing." Lily nodded. "I wanted you to know I remembered my real family. The man said my mom was too sick to want me around, but I didn't believe him. Not really. Moms always want their kids." The wisdom in her simple statement touched something deep in Robert's heart. After all the complexity of the day's events, the truth had come down to something a child inherently understood: the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. As they drove toward Memorial Hospital, Lily gazed out the window at the passing lights, her reflection in the glass showing not fear or anxiety, but anticipation. A little girl finally heading home. Memorial Hospital stood tall against the evening sky, its windows glowing with warm light as Robert, Diana, and Officer Parker accompanied Lily through the main entrance. The bustling activity of the day shift had quieted to the more subdued rhythm of night operations. Nurses moved efficiently between rooms, their soft-soled shoes making little noise on the polished floors. "My mom's here," Lily whispered, clutching her drawing and the stuffed bear from the bank. There was awe in her voice, as if she couldn't quite believe she had finally reached her destination after the long, confusing day. At the front desk, Diana spoke quietly with the charge nurse, explaining the special circumstances of their visit. Officer Parker presented the documentation authorizing Lily's return to her family. "Sarah Thompson is in room 315, the nurse informed them after reviewing the paperwork. "Her condition has stabilized significantly today. The doctor actually moved her out of intensive care this afternoon." "That's wonderful news," Diana said warmly. "Is she awake? We'd like to prepare her before bringing Lily in." "She's awake and has been asking about her daughter repeatedly," the nurse replied with a smile. "The social worker on duty has already informed her that Lily has been found safe and is on her way." As they spoke, the elevator doors opened, and Eleanor Thompson rushed toward them, her eyes immediately finding Lily. For a moment she froze, overcome with emotion. "Grandma!" Lily cried, breaking away from the adults to run into her grandmother's outstretched arms. Their reunion brought tears to the eyes of everyone present. Eleanor knelt to embrace her granddaughter, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear again. "Oh, my sweet girl," she murmured into Lily's hair. "I've been so worried about you." Lily pulled back just enough to look into her grandmother's face. "I knew you'd find me. I did the signal just like Mom taught me, and Mr. Robert saw it." Eleanor looked up at Robert with tearful gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply, the two words carrying the weight of 1,000. Robert nodded, unexpectedly moved by the scene. Lily did all the hard work. She's quite remarkable. While Eleanor and Lily continued their reunion, Diana conferred with the hospital social worker who had joined them. They discussed the best approach for the upcoming mother-daughter reunion, considering Sarah's medical condition and Lily's emotional state after her ordeal. I'd like to go up first and make sure Sarah is prepared, the hospital social worker suggested. It's wonderful news, but we want to manage the emotional impact carefully. Everyone agreed with this sensible approach. While they waited for the all clear, Eleanor helped Lily freshen up in the restroom, combing her hair and washing her face. Robert found himself touched by these simple, loving gestures, the normal, everyday care that Lily had been missing. Officer Parker received a call and stepped away briefly to take it. When he returned, his expression was satisfied. Marcus Delaney is in custody and being processed, he informed them quietly. The detective found evidence in his motel room that connects him to similar schemes in other counties. They also discovered forged guardianship papers and several blank checks with Sarah's account information. So it's really over, Robert said. Parker nodded. Parker, he won't be able to harm any other families for a long time. The hospital social worker returned with good news. Sarah is ready to see Lily now. She's emotional but stable, and the doctor has cleared the visit. As they prepared to head to the third floor, Lily suddenly turned to Robert with an unexpected question. Will you come too? To meet my mom? The simple request caught Robert by surprise. In his years of security work, he had helped countless people, but rarely witnessed the completion of their stories. Usually, once the immediate situation was resolved, his job was done. But Lily's request created a bridge between crisis and resolution that felt important somehow. Of course, he answered, if that's okay with everyone else. In the elevator, Lily stood between her grandmother and Diana, her drawing clutched carefully in one hand and her stuffed bear in the other. Her face reflected a mixture of excitement and nervousness. My mom might look different, she said suddenly. The nurse told Grandma that she has tubes and machines helping her get better. Eleanor squeezed her hand reassuringly. Your mom is still your mom no matter what, and she can't wait to see you. The elevator doors opened to the third floor, where the pediatric social worker was waiting to guide them. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly as they walked toward room 315, each step bringing Lily closer to the reunion she had been longing for. Outside Sarah's room, they paused. Through the partially open door, they could see a slender woman with Lily's blonde hair sitting up in bed. Though pale and with an IV in her arm, her eyes were bright with anticipation. Ready? Eleanor asked Lily softly. Lily took a deep breath and nodded, squaring her small shoulders. The drawing in her hand trembled slightly, the only visible sign of her nerves. As the door opened fully, revealing Lily to her mother, time seemed to stand still for one perfect, suspended moment. And then, with a cry of pure joy, Sarah Thompson opened her arms to welcome her daughter home. Mommy, Lily's voice filled the hospital room as she rushed toward her mother's bed, her drawing and stuffed bear clutched tightly in her hands. Sarah Thompson's arms opened wide, tears streaming down her face as she embraced her daughter for the first time in days. The reunion was everything Robert had hoped it would. Pure, emotional, and healing. Despite the medical equipment surrounding the bed, the moment felt like the most natural thing in the world. My brave girl, Sarah whispered, stroking Lily's hair. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Lily replied, her small voice muffled against her mother's hospital gown. I knew you wanted to see me even when he said you didn't. Sarah pulled back slightly, confusion crossing her face. Who told you I didn't want to see you? Eleanor stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Sarah's arm. There's a lot to explain, but the important thing is that Lily is safe now. Diana introduced herself as the family services representative and briefly outlined what had happened, careful to keep the details age-appropriate with Lily present. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to horror, to anger, as she understood the full scope of Marcus's deception. He told you I didn't want visitors? Sarah asked Lily, her voice trembling with emotion. Oh, sweetheart, nothing could be further from the truth. I've been asking for you every hour. I know, Lily said with surprising confidence. I saw you on TV. You were wearing your blue hospital clothes and you said you loved me. Sarah smiled through her tears. That's right, the news people came yesterday because I wanted to make sure you knew I was thinking about you, wherever you were. As mother and daughter continued their reunion, Robert stood back, allowing them their privacy while feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. This was why he had followed his instincts at the mall, for moments like this. Officer Parker's phone buzzed with a message. After checking it, he gestured for Robert and Diana to step outside with him. "We have a situation," Parker said once they were in the hallway. "Marcus Delaney is requesting to speak with Lily before he's transferred to county detention." "Absolutely not," Diana responded immediately. "That would be completely inappropriate and potentially traumatic for her." "I agree," Parker said. "But his lawyer is arguing that Lily wasn't harmed in any way, and that Marcus has important information he needs to share with her." Robert frowned. What kind of information could he possibly need to share with a 6-year-old? "It's likely a manipulation tactic," Diana said. "He may be hoping that Lily will say something sympathetic that could help you." "His case." Parker nodded. "That's my assessment as well. I've denied the request, but his lawyer is being persistent. They're suggesting that if Lily appeared comfortable with Marcus at the diner, as our own surveillance noted, then the situation might be more nuanced than we're presenting." "That's ridiculous," Robert said, feeling a protective anger rise within him. She was a child trying to survive a confusing situation. She played along because she's smart and was looking for help. "I know," Parker assured him, "but we need to be prepared for the possibility that Marcus's attorney will try to paint a different picture." Their conversation was interrupted when the door to Sarah's room opened, and Eleanor stepped out. "Sarah would like to speak with all of you," she said. "She wants to understand exactly what happened." They returned to the room where Sarah was sitting more upright. In bed, Lily now curled beside her. The little girl was showing her mother the drawing she had made, pointing out details with animated gestures. "I want to thank you all," Sarah began, her voice stronger than before. "Especially you, Mr. Wilson. My mother told me how you noticed Lily's distress. Signal at the mall. Most people would have walked right past." "I'm just glad I was there," Robert replied sincerely. Sarah turned to Officer Parker. "What happens now?" "With the man who took Lily." Parker explained the charges Marcus was facing and the evidence they had gathered. "He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. Given the documentation we found in his possession and his prior similar activities, I anticipate he'll be held without bail." Sarah nodded, satisfaction in her expression. "Good. I don't want any other family to go through what we did." As they spoke, a nurse entered to check Sarah's vital signs. "You're doing remarkably well," she commented, reviewing the monitors. "But we should be mindful of too much excitement. The doctor wants you to rest." "Just a few more minutes," Sarah requested. "This is important." The nurse nodded understanding and left them to continue their conversation. "There's something I don't understand," Sarah said, looking at Diana and Parker. "How did this man know about me, about my hospitalization and my family situation? The local news ran a story about community support for families facing medical emergencies," Diana explained gently. "You were mentioned as someone the community was rallying around. We believe that's how he identified you, as a potential target." Sarah closed her eyes briefly, processing this information. "So he saw me on the news and decided to—" "He's done this before," Parker said. "He looks for vulnerable situations and exploits them for financial gain." Lily had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. "He showed me a picture of you on his phone, Mom. He said he was your friend and you asked him to take care of me because Grandma needed a rest." This new information caught everyone's attention. Parker leaned forward slightly. "Do you remember what the picture looked like, Lily?" Lily nodded. "It was Mom in the hospital. She was sleeping." Sarah's expression registered shock. "He had a photo of me in the hospital. How is that possible?" The question hung in the air, adding a new dimension to Marcus's deception, and suggesting his planning had been more extensive than they initially realized. As the implications of this settled over the room, Robert noticed Lily watching the adults with careful attention, her perception far more acute than anyone might expect from a child her age. This wasn't just about a reunion anymore. There were still questions to be answered, a full picture to be assembled. And somehow, Lily held pieces of the puzzle that no one else possessed. The revelation about Marcus having a photo of Sarah in the hospital created a momentary silence in the room. Officer Parker was the first to recover, his professional training taking over. Lily, he said gently, kneeling to the little girl's eye level, would you be willing to tell me more about that picture? It might help us understand how Marcus planned all this. Lily looked to her mother for reassurance. When Sarah nodded encouragingly, Lily sat up straighter on the hospital bed. It was on his phone, she explained. When he found me at the mall, I was looking at the toy display while Grandma was talking to the store lady. He showed me his phone and said, I know your mommy. See, I'm helping take care of her at the hospital. Sarah reached for Eleanor's hand, squeezing it tightly as Lily continued. The picture showed Mom sleeping in a hospital bed. He said Grandma was very tired from taking care of me, and Mom had asked him to help. Lily's voice grew softer. I didn't want to go with him, but he knew my name and had Mom's picture. He said it was just for ice cream while Grandma rested, and then we'd all meet up later. Parker nodded encouragingly. That was very clever of you to remember all those details, Lily. Did he say anything about how he got the picture? Lily thought for a moment, her brow furrowing with concentration. He said he was a special helper at the hospital, but later when I asked which doctor he worked with, he changed the subject and bought me a toy instead. Diana exchanged meaningful glances with Parker. He could have posed as a hospital volunteer or visitor to gain access to the floor. We'll check the hospital security footage, Parker confirmed. This demonstrates significant premeditation. Robert had been listening quietly, but now he spoke. Lily, can you tell us about the signal you made at the carousel? The one I noticed? Lily's face brightened. Mom taught me that. We learned it in our safety class at school. It means I need help without saying the words. Sarah smiled proudly through her tears. We practiced it at home. I never thought she'd actually need to use it. But I remembered, Lily said, and I kept doing it, hoping someone would see. When Mr. Robert looked at me different than other people, I knew he understood. Robert felt a wave of emotion. You were incredibly brave, Lily. Many adults wouldn't have known what to do in that situation. I was scared, Lily admitted. But I remembered what Mom always says. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. Sarah pulled her daughter close. That's exactly right, sweetheart. Parker stood, his expression resolute. With Lily's testimony and the evidence we've gathered, Marcus Delaney will face serious charges. His request to speak with Lily is absolutely denied. Will I have to see him again? Lily asked, a flicker of worry crossing her face. No, sweetheart, Diana assured her. You've already told us everything we need to know. You don't have to see him again. Relief visibly washed over Lily. She turned to her mother, suddenly looking like the 6-year-old child she was, rather than the remarkably composed witness she had just been. Can we go home soon? She asked simply. Sarah smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. The doctor says I might be able to leave tomorrow or the next day, and yes, we'll all go home together. As the evening drew to a close, arrangements were made for Eleanor to take Lily home for the night, with plans to return in the morning. The hospital made an exception to allow Lily extra time with her mother before visiting hours ended. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged her mother tightly. I'll be back first thing tomorrow, I promise. I know you will, Sarah replied. My brave, smart girl. As Robert watched Eleanor and Lily prepare to depart, with Diana accompanying them to ensure everything went smoothly, he felt a sense of completion. The mystery had been solved. The family reunited and justice was in motion. Yet something about Lily's story, her courage, her resourcefulness, Her trust that someone would understand her signal had changed him in ways he was only beginning to recognize. Some rescues, it seemed, worked. In both directions. Chapter 15. Full Circle. 3 days later, Robert returned to his regular patrol at Westfield Mall. The morning sunlight streamed through the skylights, casting the same patterns across the floor that he had observed on that fateful day when he first noticed Lily's signal. Everything looked the same, yet somehow different through his eyes now. As he rounded the corner near the carousel, he paused. The colorful horses moved in their endless circle, calliope music filling the air just as before. For a moment, he could almost see Lily sitting there, her brave eyes finding his, her small hand making that crucial signal. "Mr. Robert." The voice pulled him from his thoughts. Turning, he saw Lily running toward him, her blonde hair bouncing with each step. Behind her walked Sarah, looking remarkably recovered, and Eleanor, both smiling broadly. Lily reached him. First, wrapping her arms around his waist in an enthusiastic hug. "We came to say thank you. Mom got out of the hospital yesterday." Robert knelt down to her level, genuinely touched by the family's gesture. "It's wonderful to see you all. You're looking much better, Ms. Thompson." Sarah nodded. Color returned to her cheeks. "The doctor says I'm making a remarkable recovery, but I wanted to thank you in person before we head home. Officer Parker told us everything," Eleanor added. "How you noticed Lily's signal when no one else did. How you trusted your instincts." Robert smiled. "Lily did the hard part. I just paid attention." "That's exactly what mattered," Sarah said warmly. "In a world where everyone is rushing and distracted, you took the time to really see." Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright and clear, no longer filled with the fear and calculation he had seen that first day. Then, to his surprise, she lifted her hand in the signal, palm out, thumb tucked, fingers folded down, but this time with a smile. "Now it means thank you," she explained. "Our special code." The simple gesture brought unexpected emotion to Robert's throat. He returned the signal with a smile of his own. "I have something for you," Lily said, reaching into her small backpack. She pulled out a carefully folded piece of paper and handed it to him. Robert unfolded it to find a child's drawing. It showed 4 figures, 3 holding hands labeled Mom, Me, and Grandma, and a 4th figure in what appeared to be a security uniform. Above them all, written in colorful letters, were the words, "My Heroes." "That's you," Lily pointed proudly to the uniformed figure, "the person who saw me." As the family prepared to leave, Sarah shook Robert's hand. "You've reminded us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just pay attention when others don't." They said their goodbyes, with promises to stay in touch. Robert watched as the family walked away, hand in hand, their shadows merging in the morning light. Returning to his patrol, Robert found himself more attuned to the people around him, the expressions, the gestures, the unspoken communications that filled the busy mall. Each face held a story. Each pair of eyes might contain a message. He tucked Lily's drawing carefully into his pocket, a reminder of what could happen when someone chose to really see. The carousel continued its endless circle in the center of the mall, horses rising and falling in their perpetual dance. Robert smiled as he watched the children riding, their faces alight with joy and innocence. And he kept watching, because he now understood more deeply than ever before. Sometimes the most important things are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice.